In 2008, I was lucky enough to be on holiday in London with my family. And I did what all good ex-art students do, and I made my family go to the Tate Modern. And I dragged everybody around to look at the artworks firsthand that I'd loved in slides and journals throughout my time as an art student. And I didn't quite get what I expected. I walked around and I marvelled at the Jackson Pollocks and the Donald Judds, and Monet's Water Lilies it's amazing. But there was a painting by American artist Mark Rothko that just blew me away. If you don't know his works, they're big colour-filled paintings, with big blurry patches of colour. This particular one is a sort of yellowy green, untitled painting. And this painting literally took my breath away. I stood in front of it and I went, I stood there, I couldn't move. It kind of like ate me alive. I couldn't move at all until my wife physically moved me away from it. Now I think back to that moment, and that's the moment where after years of study, making art myself, writing about art, thinking about art, I finally got it. It finally made sense. That experiencing art was the big thing. And that's my Rothko moment. Normally in a talk like this, I'd show you a picture of it, but it's a little bit redundant saying you need to experience this thing and then showing you a photo of it. Now, I'm a primary school teacher now, and I'm really passionate about the arts in our education system. But at the moment, I'm a little bit afraid because we're pushing our kids towards an artless future. Now, when I teach the arts at primary school, I know that it teaches creativity and flexibility, makes kids hardworking, and it even improves long-term memory. And in fact, industry at the moment, that's what they want from their leaders. They want creative, flexible thinkers as their leaders. When you think about where our kids are going to be in the future, they're going to be our community leaders, and we want creative, flexible leaders. But how do we get that? At the moment, at schools, we're sort of shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit. At the moment, schools teach between 4 and 5% of total teaching time for the arts. That's 40 to 50 hours for an entire year to teach visual arts, media, dance, drama, and music. 50 hours total. I think that's a little bit slim for the subject that's going to teach creative thinking, mental flexibility, and make kids really enthusiastic about learning. Now, the other thing that can happen, it's with teachers themselves. We're all probably a little bit guilty of this. Now, teachers can do one of two things. This is what I see. They drop arts assignments onto kids' desks and they say, "How about it, kids? This is the due date. This is when you hand it in." But there's no way you'd do that in mathematics. You'd never introduce division and say, "Here's a working model, here's guidance, here's scaffolding." Why is it okay for mathematics but not for the arts? The other thing is avoiding the arts completely, making it colouring in on a rainy Friday afternoon. That's avoiding it completely. Both of those things do the same thing. And that's the kids that feel creative, that feel comfortable in the arts will excel. And they'll be fine. But those kids that don't excel will feel lost and they'll feel uncreative. And that's a bit devastating. Now, kids that go through our school system feeling uncreative are going to leave school feeling uncreative. They're going to enter university feeling uncreative. They're going to leave university feeling uncreative. Those people are going to become teachers who feel uncreative. And they're going to teach our kids that then they can't be creative themselves. So what's being done to fix this at the moment? Now, there's a few people that are advocating for a whole rethink. So like TED legend Sir Ken Robinson is saying that we need to rethink our education system to make creativity this core goal. And that's a really great idea. And I really, really want that to happen. But unlike Sir Ken, this Ken is in a classroom right now with students right now, and we don't have the time to wait until that changes. We're a little bit time poor on that. We need a practical solution now that's going to change things for our kids. And I think we should fill our schools with contemporary art. Now, good teaching practice says that inside our classroom, we coat our walls with instructional and aspirational models of work, literacy and numeracy. But what that's telling kids is all the learning happens inside the classroom. Our schools shouldn't be like that. The whole school should be a learning space. And while, inside the classroom, literacy and numeracy is the goal, what's happening with the rest of our school outside? I know a lot of schools look pretty gross. Government mistint paint, cobwebs, it's dirty.
It's just for PE, that's about it. So we want to do something different. Now, I think what we should be doing is having experts curate actual examples of contemporary art to be put on permanent display in our schools. I don't really want to come out here and say we should go and paint an alphabet mural on every wall, or hopscotch games that teach counting, or the school's football logo everywhere, because all that does is fill the school with colour. It doesn't teach us anything, it doesn't extend our minds. What we should be doing is installing bold, contemporary works that are challenging, that make us think. Now, practicalities-wise, these are all photos of my school, and this is the tennis court wall. It's pretty gross. What we can say to an artist is say, when you put that large-scale graphic design piece on there, it needs to include the horizontal line at net height. It should stay practical, but it's still a graphic design piece. It's still making us think. This is the area I actually line my kids up every day for school. That's the exact spot. But what we're saying is, we're going to tell our designers and we're going to tell our artists that we should fill it, make it feel exciting to be there. Put examples of street art and graffiti and those sorts of things. Not necessarily graffiti and vandalism, but street art graffiti. And say it's an exciting place and make you think, why is the image there? There's nothing to say that we can't go to the sculptor. Well, the sculpture that we put out in the middle of the field needs to be safe for kids to play on and around and eat on, and it needs to be out there and big and bold. Now, what's the benefit of putting contemporary art in our schools? This is the big thing. First off, it gives the arts value. We teach our kids every day that mathematics and English and science are important because we dedicate so much time to it. But that means the reverse is also true. We're telling our kids, we're teaching our kids that the arts are not that important because we don't dedicate much time to it. We have the opportunity to say to our kids that the arts are important because we choose to surround ourselves by them. Okay? There's nothing to say that art needs to be the fragile, put behind glass thing that's never to be touched. It's never really been like that. We can say that 2D and 3D, weatherproof, hardy, flexible artwork can be put everywhere in our schools. We can install sound work, and installation work, and interactive work. It can be a vibrant place where the kids learn every single day. When we put in bold, thought-provoking works, that does something special for our kids. It promotes critical thinking. When an artwork makes someone question why, when a child or an adult for that matter says why, that's the start of critical thinking. They say, why is it that big? Why is it that ugly colour? Why did they even bother putting it here? These are the great questions. And the really, really great thing is the teachers don't have to know the answers. The teachers don't need to be art experts. All they need to do is foster a conversation with the students saying, well, why is it like that? Why do you think it's like that? Talk about possibilities and options. And the students have actually led critical thinking. Teachers haven't come out and said, well, we're going to think deeply about this particular thing. The children themselves have led that process. Now, artworks like this, contemporary artworks, teach our kids that they can take risks. When they look at an artwork and they say, well, yeah, that is art, they accept that that is an artwork, but it doesn't have to cater to everybody's tastes. That lets them go, well, I can be a little bit risky when I make my artwork. I can express myself in a unique way. And we know, research tells us that kids that take risks are better mathematicians, better scientists, better writers, better technicians, better thinkers. That's the sort of people we want in our community in the future. Now, the other great thing of having contemporary artworks in our schools is there's a great benefit of living with artwork. If you have a great piece of art in your house, every day you look at it, but it never gets stale. Every single day you look at it and it's vibrant. That's because as you grow, your perceptions of the artwork grows as well. And it changes as you change. The physical thing stays the same, but it changes. Imagine being surrounded by gallery standard artworks throughout all of your formative primary school years. Imagine how your concept of art and those particular artworks would change and grow. Imagine what that does for children about the possibilities of being artists themselves. The arts sector would get a great big boost. The other thing is a feeling of pride. Now, here's another photo of my school. This is an Indigenous mural that's in my school. And here's a really amazing thing. It's right next to that tap. And kids over the years have washed out paintbrushes, and a couple of the cheeky ones, we've got a few cheeky ones, put their handprint on the wall behind it. But the handprints never go onto the art. In fact, the kids have started mimicking the artwork themselves. They've started making their own work. The great thing about this is that this tap is right next to a prep and year 1 classroom. That means 5-year-olds understand that you don't mess up art. When we fill our school with contemporary art, that says that the children are going to have pride in the school. It's going to be something special. Now, thinking about all of these positive benefits, the critical thinking, the long-term benefits, taking risks, as an educator, when I think, well, there's a possibility that could happen when a kid interacts with a piece of art, I actually don't think it's just a good idea. I actually feel it's an obligation. We're obligated to do this for our kids. Now, the big question. Some of you might be thinking, Ken, this is great. Art's expensive. Art's like really expensive. Now, in Australia, arts funding comes from the state and federal government. And in Queensland, we've had a couple of things. One project is called Art Built In, the other one is called Art in Place. Now, between 1999 and 2012, those two projects injected well over $14 million into public art projects. Now, for a state or public school, the co-contributions were 0. That means you could install an actual piece of work from like a really famous Australian artist for nothing but paperwork. Paperwork and time. That's it. To give all those benefits to our kids. At the moment, Arts Queensland and the Australia Council for the Arts and Education Queensland all work together to do an Artist in Residence program. It funds artists coming into schools to improve student benefits. And we can direct that, as schools, we can direct that and say, the outcomes need to be like this. So all of those positive benefits are there. Failing those sort of things, there's private funding, and then you could even go into like crowdsource funding as well. These are all possibilities. Now I understand that it's expensive and it takes a lot of work, but those benefits far exceed the costs. Now, at the end of the day, we know that we can put all these massive benefits of the arts into our schools. We don't have to sacrifice literacy and numeracy time. So can we please swerve away from an artsless future, invest in contemporary art in our schools, and give every child their very own Rothko moment every time they step inside our school?